For those of you that maybe have been in the past all church meeting, maybe you haven't, just a quick refresher what our goal here is today and what our purpose is. This is just to share some of the business of PBC. And we've only been around 5 years, so when we would first do this, this was sometimes our most important discussion and communication. I've just threw a short agenda, though. What we just try to do is run through what's going on in the church and ask questions, have a discussion, so feel free that this can be a question and answer session. This will not be presentation style. Even with people here, put your hand up. The only request we would ask, not to put people on the spot, is we'll take the mic around because we record this too, because there's other people that couldn't be here that want to hear what's going on. But we just want to share what's happening here and what's going to happen next as we move forward and some of the questions we may have. And if anybody doesn't believe in God's timing, I want you to think about the sermon we just heard today. Think about the sermon was planned back last fall when Craig and Billy put together the sermon series for this year. And the idea of we're going to have an all-church meeting to talk about how we are all going to help the church, what individual parts we can all play in some form or fashion, what role each of us has from a spiritual gift standpoint, and yet we're kicked off by that with a spiritual gift discussion and how we can all be a part of the body of Christ and help one another. So I think God's timing was very well set today. What we are going to look at, again, is an administrative update, talking about the finances here a little bit, our capital campaign, and some of what we've talked about as a leadership team, the ministry update, just some of those things we've always go through, our missions update, our mission spotlight and what's looking there. And then we're going to try something new a little bit, that at our all-church meetings, we want to have a simple ministry spotlight. As we continue to grow, there's more and more things going on here at PBC that we don't necessarily talk about on a Sunday morning during the service, but we want to make sure people know about. And so we're going to just try to spotlight that. We have 3 or 4 meetings a year, spotlight different things that are going on that we can all know about and get excited about, that is happening in the body, if you will, that we can know about and go there. Now, with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Randy first, our treasurer. He's going to talk about the finances and how things are looking, hopefully good. Randy, there you are with that.
Things are looking good. We'll see you later.
Well said. We said it's short too, right?
I thought I swiped this. Oh, there we go. There's our financials. The general fund giving, as you can see, this is for the January through April, 136,000 in, 110 out. So we've got a positive cash flow. We've got positive income. We have a very complicated, itemized budget. We're happy to share that with you sometime. We're not going to spend time going through that many lines. There's probably 40 lines in it and all kinds of weird codes there. But the general idea is we don't ask you to guarantee us any kind of offering. We just say, hey, when the Spirit moves you, put some dollars in the miracle barn back there, and that's how we survive. And as you can see, we've grown. We have new members. Our income has grown, our staff has grown, and we're still in a positive cash flow situation. So we're thankful to God for that and His leading. And thank you, everyone, for your support. You might remember that you've seen this slide before. This is our Growing the Church campaign. And we just... again, these are pretty round numbers, but we just show that our building and our land purchase was $1.2 million. We've spent about $700,000 in renovation. Our capital campaign gifts and pledges have amounted to $1,150,000, and plus the $250,000. So that's, I think, about $1.4 million. And at that time, we talked about we had a remaining debt of $500,000, and we had additional projects we wanted to do of $100,000. Now, Tom mentioned earlier that we're going to have that little celebration, renovation celebration coming up, and we also talked about walk around the church and see what's been done. And the latest phase since our last meeting has been what I call the West Wing, our Christian education wing, where the classrooms are. And if you walk back there, you'll see that the hallway is carpeted, the walls have all been finished and painted, the ceilings are all new, they're 2x2 square ceilings, and there's LED lighting back there. So there's been some tremendous improvements in that area, and we're really pleased with that. And I just mentioned that because when we see the category up there, additional projects, 100,000, we pretty well have those all accomplished. But we do still have remaining debt, and I just want to talk about that a little bit. So in our effort to reach that goal of 600,000, we have received pledges and funds of 415,000. So if you subtract that from 600,000, we still have 184,000 to go. And excuse me, Billy asked us all to think about what our part is on the team. I get the part about asking people for money. Now, you know, just like we ask you for offering, this is volunteer. We don't buttonhole people, and we don't say you haven't pledged or you could pledge more. But we don't hesitate to stop and ask, has God led you to think about a gift to our capital campaign? And one of the benefits of that to each of us is, if you look at our monthly mortgage payment, it's a little over $5,000. And most recently, our monthly interest cost is $1,100. So I like to think of this, we have a promotion going on. Any dollars you give, if you look at that, we spend about 20 cents of every dollar on interest. You can magnify your giving by giving to the campaign and help us wipe out that 20%. So the quicker we can reach our goal and accelerate our mortgage payments, we save that interest cost, and that will allow us in the future to do some other things that we'd like to do. It might be supplemental staff things, programming things, maybe some more materials. But this is an opportunity, if you haven't given to the campaign yet, to think about that very strongly. We have our little brochure. This is what it looks like. It's right back in the back, right by the barn. And we have pledge sheets available if you'd like to make a pledge. If you'd like to make a one-time gift, that's great too. If you have any questions, you can always contact me. And hey, I'm in the new directory. Any questions? Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you this morning.
Thank you, Randy. Now, before he leaves, hold on, Randy. He did that really quick, too. You know, any questions? Oh, okay, we're done. I guess move on. So before we in all seriousness, this is a family. We want to have a discussion. If there are any questions about the finances of the campaign at all before we let him leave. Okay, thank you again, Randy, for your help with that. Looking on at a couple of other updates from an administrative standpoint, we met as a leadership team for your church back in January, just to talk as a leadership team where we see God's vision and what we're supposed to continue to carry out. 4 things that came out of that, kind of as a little bit of a priority for 2022, if you will, are up here now. And you're going to hear about basically almost all of these here this morning. That's just a little bit what we're trying to do, is share where we see God's vision and where the leadership team is going, and then how we can all be a part of that. A mission focus is probably that monthly spotlight that's come out. That's one of the things that have come out of that, and we're going to hear about that a little bit more in our ministry update. The discipleship strategies, we're going to talk a little bit about that. The amount of Bible studies that we're trying to involve and are getting more and more involved here have really come out of that and are really growing, we think, here at Prairie Bible. Welcoming new attendees is another specific area, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit now, that as we've seen in the last 4 to 6 months, a lot of new people coming. And wanting to come and try out Prairie Bible or heard about us and seeing where that is at. And so we as a leadership team said, that's awesome, that's great if they come, but it's even better if they come and feel welcomed. It's even triple better if they come, feel welcomed, and stay, and really feel God's Spirit and get to become, this is their home. And we thought we had a little gap there, and we've tried to spend a lot of time the last few months trying to help with that. Some of which hopefully all of you know about. One of the simple things that we instigated was the Connect gatherings. And every Sunday, the last Sunday of the month, after service, we have a Connect gathering for anybody that wants to come and just learn more about Prairie Bible, our foundation, our history, and what we're doing. I think that was February was the first one. Billy, does that seem right? February, March, April. I think we've had 3. And I'm going to say we had between 10 and 30 people at each one of them, basically, which has been incredible attendance, we think, and people having great discussion. What we thought could be a 10 or 15 minute, hey, here's the basics, has turned into a back and forth discussion that has lasted 30 to 40 minutes. And it's been really, I think, hopefully informational for them and for us, and been great that way. The next step we've said is we are, again, trying to build the foundation and the core and build those relationships with people, is then we had a breakfast with leaders here about a month ago, inviting all those people that have been new to Prairie Bible here within the last 4 to 6 months to just come. It was a Saturday morning in the gathering space, and the administrative team, the ministry team, those other people who were there were here, and then invite all those new people just to have discussion, get to know each other better, to know about what's going on here, and it's been really, really healthy, I think. And we're going to continue that, and with maybe some tweaks, but want you to know about what's going on there. And what is awesome is one of the main feedbacks we heard, and I think that is so important to share here, is almost to a person that have come recently. One of the feedbacks we heard, either in the Connect gathering or the breakfast, was, when I walk in the doors, I just feel so welcome. Everybody's so friendly. Everybody smiles. I mean, even Emil Tomash smiles at them, I think, and it's surprising. It really is. And we can make fun of that a little bit, but I think I sometimes take that for granted here at Prairie Bible. But when you hear people that have gone to other churches, that's not the case. So I want to thank you all for what we do here, that's one of the most impactful things that we're doing that maybe we don't even realize. That's just part of our culture and who we are, but we want to maintain. So that's been really awesome, and that's where we're going to continue to go there. The last thing is the life group focus, and again, I'm going to let Tina's going to share a little bit of the ministry update with that as we're going forward of what's happening there. One of the things we do, I want to talk about a little bit that's come up fairly recently, is space. One of the beautiful things is we've had Connect gatherings because of all the people that have been coming. And what we can see is that's a great thing because people are so excited about Prairie Bible and we're filling the space. So what we as a leadership team have said, 3 years ago, we were meeting in a barn, and when we started meeting at school and said, hey, this is kind of fun, and we said, we better make plans for the long range. How long can we meet in a school? Well, we're saying the same thing now. We're in this great space. God has blessed us with more than I could have dreamed about even 2 years ago, let alone 5 years ago. But yet, is this where we're going to be in 3, 5, 10 years from now? So we're looking at kind of putting together a small visioning team to look at what the next 3 to 7 years are going to be here at Prairie Bible. And we're going to open that up not just to the administrative team, but if any of you feel called that maybe one of your spiritual gifts could be in that visioning of where the future is going. When I say a small team, we're hoping for about 3 to 5 people. But catch me after service or after this time right now or in the next week or two here. We're going to try to start meeting this summer just to try to put that together, where we see God leading us, and would like to open it up to, again, if there's volunteers that want to be a part of that, we may have 10 or 15 people that want to be involved, which would be awesome. We may not all be involved in that small committee. We may just disseminate in different ways. So we may not have, we're going to try to keep it small just so we can have communication. But I want to open that up and know that if you feel that's your calling, we want to make sure that you're available and able to help with that potentially. Then in the short term, we're also starting to see that right now. Whether the long term means, are we supposed to be in this space? Are we supposed to add on? Who knows? But in the short term, we also need to make sure that we're comfortable and flexible to utilize this space as well as we can for the next few years. We started Prairie Bible Church, when we started, one of the basic purposes we said was to be a church for others. Mark Steffens was famous for saying that in so many meetings I remember. It was kind of his tagline, and I loved it, and I thought it was really good. We're a church for others. We said our culture here is to be smiling and welcoming people in. We want to make sure that we're still welcoming people to do that. So as we go, whether it be in, obviously a Sunday morning is one thing, but whether it be life group meetings here, Bible study meetings here, events that are going on in the church throughout the week, we're going to start getting more and more creative, more and more flexible. And we're asking that a year ago, anybody could come to a church about any time and use a space. Now we're getting to where there's going to be some conflicts. So we're going to just ask that you help to schedule. If you want to have an event here at church, we want to do it. We want to make it happen, and we're going to try to help any way we can. But realize we just need to do some scheduling. So if we can coordinate that through Mark Steffens, just his operations, to help make sure that we don't have conflicts. Last thing we want you to do is come here planning a great event with a Bible study or life group and then have it full and you can't do it. So hopefully we can do that, and just asking for a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness here as we kind of grow through these growing pains. These are great problems to have. And we just want to make sure that, again, if we can communicate and be flexible, we can still serve God and continue to grow in the path He's going on us. Okay? Now, with that being said, one of the aspects that can be a little bit tougher to be flexible with is when we have 10 or 15 people walking in at 9:58 on Sunday morning, coming for the 10 o'clock service. Because generally, when somebody's trying out a church, they don't come for coffee 20 minutes before. So they walk in at 9:58, maybe even 9:59, and then by the time they get to the back here, it's 10:01, and we've started singing, and everybody's standing up, and they stand out those doors, and they look out here, and they say, oh my gosh, it's full. Where do I go? Well, there's tables in the back, and so they can sit in the back, and then they kind of almost feel like second class. And I don't mean it that way in a bad way, but we can kind of get that feel, and that's the last thing our culture is and what we want for them. So what we're trying to decide is, as a church, and this is why we're just posing this question out here, how do we make sure that we're welcoming on that Sunday morning for both services, that there's plenty of room for people to come in and be able to sit and enjoy the space and feel that same welcoming? So our wonderful statistician, engineer, Mr. Steffens, Mark Steffens has put together some attendance numbers. This is starting in January. This is every Sunday in 2022 of what our attendance has been. The blue line is the number at first service, or 8:30. The green line is the number at second service, at 10 o'clock. You can obviously see a little dip at spring break, that's March 13th, and then you see a little bit of a spike for Easter, which we expect. What the red line is across there is 70% of capacity. I mean, we take all the chairs in here, and that line is 70% of that red line of capacity. Now, what does that mean, and why 70%? Well, if we're at 70%, we got plenty of room, right? And there's no problem there. But generally, the feeling is in a church setting, even right now, you can kind of see there's kind of holes here and there where there's a few chairs, that 70% is generally considered somewhat full. And if you go back to my first kind of story, if you will, of when somebody walks in at 9:59 to try out a new church, and they get to the door here at 10:01, and at 70%, it's going to look full, even though there's a lot of open seats. And that's where that welcoming standpoint can be a little bit tough. And how do they feel like they can go in and take a seat? Now, with all that being said, I don't have an answer of what that means. But I know all of you, and that we want to be that church for others. So what we're doing is we're presenting here, and we wanted to share, the admin team said, let's share what's going on, where we feel we're at, and then maybe we can all soak it in. We can take this back, think about it, pray about it here over the next few months, and we'll see how this leads us. I will share a couple of thoughts. One is, the simple thing is, my type A personality says, I need to go to about 25 people at the second service and say, okay, you all need to go to the first service, and then we'll balance this out, and we get to 50%, we got plenty of room. Easier said than done, right? And I'm certainly going to say, well, the other thing we could do is 70% capacity is not full. If everybody in the back 8 rows all has to come sit up in the front row, then we'd have plenty of room. Probably not going to happen either. So those are the questions, those are the things that I'm just posing, that we as a church want to make sure, as welcoming as we are, how we can do that. But now that you're seeing where we're at, and we open this up and talk about it, if you've been attending second service just because you were attending second service and you said, well, I'm happy to go to first service, maybe that's one of the answers, is maybe you try the first service just to see how that changes the dynamic and see how it changes things. Does that make sense, at least what we're asking or what we're sharing of what's going on here? I shared this with a couple of other people, and they kind of braced for it, and they're like, oh no, does that mean we have to go to 3 services? I think all options are on the table. Everything has to be talked about. At some point, God has a plan. We're going to follow that. 2 years ago right now, we never dreamed we would have going to 2 services. When Prairie Bible Search started, we said we want to be in one service because it's a family, and we are all connected, and we're all together. But the Lord had other plans. And so it's the same way here. I am not suggesting 3 services. Please don't crucify me because I just suggested 3 services. Nobody wants that. But what we're suggesting is we need to come up, and we'll need to continue to work through, whether it's going to different service times, whether it's moving service times. Those are all things that are being talked about, and we just wanted to open up. Okay, I talked way too much there. I want to open up if there's any questions about just the growth, the long-term plan, and or the short-term challenges we may go through here in the next few months to year. Any questions about that? Everybody just wants to leave. Yes, we got one. Okay.
not be the right spot to ask the question, but I keep thinking about it, and you've had so many new people come. What role does discipleship play in this conversation as far as new people coming and the discipleship that needs to go out? And I guess, how do you do discipleship here?
It's a great,
besides small groups, besides life groups.
That's a great question. We've kind of got that on the agenda to talk about even the Bible study aspects of it a little bit. So yeah, it's a great segue that I will, and we're going to have, Billy's going to share a little bit about that. So perfect. And that's a good time, because that's part of the conversation, exactly. We don't have it all figured out yet, but we're trying to work through it, yes. Other questions just about space and needs? Okay. Well, I remind myself frequently, and I want to remind you all, this is an awesome blessing, isn't it? It could be a lot worse if we were sitting here with 20 people trying to figure out how we're going to pay the light bill. But as Randy said, all things are good. We can go home. I'm going to ask, Tina, if you want to come up too, we're getting ready. Well, just because we're videotaping it. Yeah, please. Thanks, Bob.
I was just curious, the demographics age-wise. You know, you're talking space here. What about kids areas, junior, senior high, that kind of thing?
Great question. Very briefly, and we can talk about that more detail if you have, but there's, now with the renovation, and Randy just mentioned, we just finished the renovation down the education wing now. There's a nursery room for the tinies, basically under preschool, and then there's 3 classrooms that are down there that are all furnished. So out of those 3 classrooms that can be used and modified for different ages. Generally, one of the classrooms is used during the first service for the kids that come up, and then 2 of those classrooms are used during the second service for those kids. So right now there is a little space available because we've got now 3 that just basically got finished 2 weeks ago. Now we've got 3 classrooms, so we've got a little bit of overflow available, which is awesome. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to ask Tina to come up. She's going to share a little bit from a ministry team update of what's going on and where we've been with that. Thanks, Tina.
Thank you, Tom. I think I'm on. All right, I'm Tina Steffens, and I'm up here because Cheryl is unfortunately had to be out of town today, but she asked that I'm doing this. So.
Well, here, just use this one.
Now I'm on. Okay. So anyway, I'm here for Cheryl, and just wanted to fill you in a little bit about what we've been doing with the mission team and ministry. Thanks to the blessings of all of the contributions people have made, we have been able to give $10,000, over $10,000 year to date to different local missions and also some global missions. The great thing about this is that as a church, when we were founded, we decided that we were going to give 10% of everything that came in the door, came in the offering, would go to mission. And we have fulfilled that pledge and exceeded that, because many times we'll ask for a special offering for some missions, and that is not included in these dollars. So this isn't about what great things Prairie Bible is doing, but it's what great things God is doing for the world. And I'd just like to point out, I kind of categorized this in my own mind in a couple ways. The first 3 would be the Kentucky tornado, the Winterset tornado, and the 8 Days of Hope are all kind of a disaster recovery, and that was about $3,500. The remaining $7,000 was given to family support. Most of it here locally, and some of it went to Ukraine. Some of it went to Nigeria, to orphanages. And the interesting thing with that, with the Ukraine orphanage, this is something that was near and dear to local people, because we've got a gentleman here in Swisher that was adopting people, 3 children from Ukraine, and he had calling to go and actually was trying to bring the children home and was not able to, but he did help get the children moved out of Ukraine to a new orphanage. And our offering helped with that. So our decision from originally, I think it was part of our discussion in January of how we could spotlight our missions and not just throw money wherever we think a little $10 here, $100 there would help, but maybe drive a spotlight and highlight how can we share what that mission does, what that mission's purpose is, and how can we support that mission, largely through prayer, by volunteering if it's possible, and also just by financial, as we have shown. The first one was a mission that Jolene and Francis had on their hearts, and they took it upon themselves to take a collection of things that everyone had brought to the church to Mayfield, Kentucky. And I think the picture tells you just a tiny glimpse of what they encountered when they got there, and they're still rebuilding. The middle picture is a cross in the empty parking lot of a church that was wiped out during that tornado. And there again, we took a special offering, and we sent over $2,000 to that first Christian church in Mayfield so that they could start to build a new church. And of course, we have Jolene and Francis there with, I think this is Annie Garner, that helped start a foundation there where we sent additional money so that they could help the local folks there. In March, our mission spotlight was on Bridgehaven, where there is support for families, again, regardless of what the situation is, for mothers who are pregnant, for fathers who want to be involved in that pregnancy. And we also, again, took up a different kind of a collection for that one. Alongside giving mission money, we had the baby bottle boomerang, and I know Tom had to say that several times. But we, again, appreciate all the money that went to that mission. Finally, well, I guess in April, we had the Nigerian Christian Orphanage, and happy to say that we have wired money there. It's still on the way, and international finances are difficult, but getting money into a country like Nigeria are even more difficult, but they will put every penny of that money to work. And as you can see, there's about 150 kids there, and they and the staff are ready to utilize that money. I'll put it that way. And our current mission spotlight this month is on Hope CDA, which we had 12 people join us last week from Hope CDA. I think 10 of them were gentlemen from the program that had left prison and have joined Hope CDA, and their lives have been reformed. So you can see that they are building wood crafts, which were for sale out here this morning, but they also have a mission to do discipling and Bible studies and reform their lives, rebuild their lives. And we'll be meeting next month to, again, come up with what our mission will be for June. But the bottom line is, what can we do to further the kingdom?
Any questions or comments about mission, what we've been doing? Did you want to share this, or did you want me to?
Oh, my husband told me I needed to do it. I always do what he tells me to do. Not.
Could you do me a favor and talk to my wife?
Okay, one more thing that we talked about in the ministry team was how can we put more emphasis on the life groups. And in April, we decided to have a life group fair where at that time, I think we had 9 active life groups that took part, and everyone was represented back there, and new members could casually go talk to the leaders and decide whether or not they if that time worked for them, or if that, if sometimes people meet every week, sometimes they meet once a month. So it was just a very great opportunity for people to get to see who the life group leaders were and if they could find a home if they were a new member. And fortunately, we had 23 people sign up for life groups in addition to those that we already had. So we now have a total of 150 people in life groups, which is just outstanding. That is part of the glue that I think helps us feel like a community. But in 2022, we've added 3 additional life groups, and we need to add more. So if anyone wants to be a life group leader, probably see Pastor Craig, or Tom, or Mark.
Thanks, Tina. Any questions about that as well? We've talked about the missions, the ministry, and or life groups. Any questions, comments, discussion? One of the things that, before I give Billy the mic, because then I won't get it back, one of the things as we segue this was talked about, we're growing in life groups, we're growing in things going on. It's not just about this building. And that's the other thing that we're coming from, I made earlier. We'll figure out a way to do it. The church is not the building. The church is the people. Rebecca, you asked about discipleship. That's where Billy's going to kind of fill in. That's a bigger part of what this is. The facility we'll deal with, or we won't deal with this. Remember, we started in a barn. We started in a Morton Pole building. We met anywhere and everywhere. We don't need this building, even though we've got it. And that's a big thing to remember. The discipleship piece, that's the more important part, and we're going to let him talk about that. Before we do that, though, sorry, you got interrupted. Leanne?
Hi. I've been working on, with some other people, printed materials, and if somebody is looking for something and they can't find out, for example, how to join a life group, any information about the church, prayer requests, probably the first thing they do is talk to somebody else, and that's great. That's probably preferred, but we also have cards at each of the entrances near the name tags that are kind of connect cards, or I can't remember what we call them. There's brochures there for new members. There's connect cards. If you're standing, greeting, whatever, and somebody comes up and says, how do I get connected with whatever, go to the name tag table, take one of those cards, and have them fill it out, have them hand it to one of our pastors, put it in the Miracle Barn or whatever. I just wanted to make people aware of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Leanne. Again, we're welcoming. You greet people when they come in. You smile at them. You give them a handshake. But then how do we connect them? And having those welcome cards, give them one of those brochures, make sure they know about it, and introduce them to a pastor would be a great way to do it. So that's great feedback. Yes, thank you. Anything else? As we said, discipleship is a new big part. I think we got that next. Billy, please. Not on here either? Okay. We're good.
Well, Tom, my wife and I are going to the Lake of the Ozarks after this, so I can promise you I don't want to have this mic very long. I'm ready to get out.
Do you follow your wife's instructions, or does she follow yours? No, don't answer
We're
that.
We're going to focus on adult
that.
discipleship this morning. So, Rebecca, you asked a great question about discipleship. Obviously, we have different age groups of discipleship. We have our next-gen ministries, so there's certain ways that we disciple our high schoolers, our middle schoolers, our kids, and then we have like a young adults small group. So there's different ways we do it, but what we really want to focus on in this meeting, and then any questions you have, I'd be happy to answer, is our adult discipleship. As Tom has said a few times, we are taking everything in stride and saying, okay, what can we do today or this week or this month to help people be grafted into our church, but then also to disciple people, right? Go and make disciples of all nations. We understand the importance of helping people be discipled here. One of the main ways we're trying to do that is our studies ministry. So you heard of the number of people we have in life groups. That is so encouraging to me that we would have 150 people in life groups. I mean, that alone is a huge part of our discipleship. But one of the things we've seen a huge hunger for here is studies. We have just seen this desire in our church for people who want to know the Word of God more. And so as we're looking over this next year, we are considering ways to kind of add more to that studies ministry. You guys are probably already aware that we do 2 all-church studies a year. We just finished one. We are going to do another all-church study in the fall, and that is a study that we invite everybody in our church to. We have our life groups typically do those studies together, and then Pastor Craig and I offer a study time. So we have another one of those coming up. We would encourage you to join that when we release information about it, and also to invite your friends. It's a great way for people to get to know our church better. I also just want to walk you through the current studies we have. One of the studies we do here is at 8:30 a.m. on Sunday mornings. John Wagner is walking a group of about 15 to 20 people through the Bible. And John is one of the most awesome Bible teachers you will ever meet. That's a wonderful class. That's at 8:30 on Sunday mornings in the back education wing. And that class is going to begin meeting at 10 a.m. starting June 1st. So if you're considering joining that class, just know that they're going to switch from 8:30 to 10 a.m. starting on June 1st. These classes are open for everyone. Just keep that in mind. It's really about what interests you and what part of the Bible you want to learn. A study that I've been attending that has really been a bright spot in my week is the Acts Bible study. So Ron Bunch is walking a group of 20 to 25 people through the book of Acts. That is Thursday mornings at 10 a.m. And we would love to have you join if you would consider joining that, and you're available at 10 a.m. on Thursday. We also have a Crossways study. This is with Crystal Sullivan, and this is more of an advanced type theological class. They really dive deep on some things about the Bible. And this is Wednesday evenings at 6:30 p.m. here at Prairie Bible Church. I mentioned the two all-church studies, and I don't expect you guys to remember everything I just said. But if any of those interest you and you have questions, please seek me out, and I'll help you get to the right place. Something I wanted to just announce to you guys is one of the things we've seen in people's pursuit of the Bible that they're desiring here is an introduction to the Bible. You know, kind of a way to get started. I'm sure that most of us have had the experience of opening the Bible and saying, I have no idea what these things mean, right? And so this Bible 101 class that we're considering, that Deb Hughes is going to help with, is an opportunity to kind of have an introduction to the Bible. We're still working out the details of that and the starting time, but if you have interest in that, just know that's right around the corner. About half of this, about 8-week course is going to be an introduction to the Bible, and then the other half is going to be using the tools we learned to walk through a short book of the Bible together. And so this is kind of an entry point if you're just getting started with the Bible or you want some refreshers with an introduction to the Bible. So just be on the lookout for those details. We're continuing to consider everything with our studies ministry and how we can continue to offer things that people really want to go to and learn from in the Bible. That's just one piece of our adult discipleship, but that's the focus right now. If you have any questions about that or anything else with adult discipleship, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
They all just want me to get out here and go to the Ozarks.
There you go.
Which I respect. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
As we transition, we said the kind of the new part of our all-church meeting is going to be a ministry spotlight. So I'm going to invite Jerry and Kathy Schroeder to come up. A couple of years ago, one of our all-church studies, some of you may remember, was the Fresh Wind, Fresh Fire book. And effectively, the way I described that is that was a really focus on prayer and prayer life and prayer in a church. And Jerry and Kathy took it as to be a champion of that and said, you know, we think that's important at Prairie Bible. And they've kind of kicked that off and has been going horribly strong ever since. And so we said, hey, let's just highlight that a little bit and talk about what's going on there. I'm going to flip this. There you go. There you go. It's there. It's just for you. And so Jerry and Kathy are going to share a little bit about what's going on there and just some of those details so that we all know about it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think the main purpose of that we wanted to relay here is for most of you that don't know us. Some of you know about the prayer group already, but we'd like to just go back to the beginning and where it started and how we started and how it's progressing. And so with that said, I'm going to turn it over to the person who was led by the Lord to start this.
Well, I'm here because I heard that if you speak up here, you get shoes. Right? All right. Well, back in 2019, I can't remember the name of the book study. Everett would remember it. We did an all-book study, and basically it was about a church in New York that was just a fledgling church, just beginning, and how they started a prayer group that met every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and how that church grew and grew and grew. And so we thought, I think we went to a couple of sermons Pastor had on, this book study. And there was just this kind of gnawing thing in my brain, and then it was kind of saying, this might not be such a bad thing, starting a prayer group, this and that. And I do remember saying to God, this is a great plan, but it's not me. It's got to be somebody else, because I don't have this gift to be able to share this part. Me standing here is just an amazing accomplishment. That was how it started. Was basically I felt a calling from God. I presented it to Jerry, and I was expecting him to say, "No, we really shouldn't do that." I'm giving him every opportunity to make this stop, but it didn't. He was like all on board, like, sure. At this time we were meeting at Hill Elementary, so we didn't have a place to meet outside of Sundays. So that was the conversation. Well, can we meet in our home? Sure we can. We could accommodate as many people who wanted to come.
I'll give you a
So,
rest.
oh, he thinks I'm hogging.
Okay.
I want good shoes.
So we started out in our home, and so we worked a few months there, and then we got access to the building. And so back in the education wing, we started to clean up a bit because it was pretty messy at the time. And I remember we cleaned out a room back there to have it. And so that's where we met for I'm not sure how long. And then as it got better, we met a few times right out here in this area here, and then at another room in the back. And so it went on, and then that was good until COVID hit. And so, okay, what do we do now? And I'm pretty sure Mark gave us the go ahead, or wanted to, let's try Zoom. Well, okay, we'll try Zoom. And so that's what we did. We tried Zoom, and if you've ever been on Zoom or had been on a multi Wi-Fi network or anything, you have just terrible lag and terrible this. And so we have 10 or 12 people on the line. And so we're sitting there at our computers, and we got pictures of everybody. And it went okay, but it's pretty hard to not overtalk somebody. Somebody's praying, and then, okay, then two people jump in and they want to talk. So it was a little difficult, but we made it through that. And then, but the kind of the funny thing is we close all of our all our meetings with the Lord's Prayer. And if you want to listen to something funny, have 10 or 12 people trying to say the Lord's Prayer over the Wi-Fi network, and it's just going crazy. So I'm pretty sure Mark or somebody had suggested the next. I don't think we did that more than twice, but Mark, I think, suggested, hey, look, let's just have one person do this, okay? And that's where we went from there. And then, of course, we meet in the back room there, and we have probably, could be 5, could be 1. There's been times when we had 1 with us. Not with us. Kathy was 1. I think the pastor was here by himself one time. But anywhere from 9 to 12, an average. And I think probably most of them are here today. But I guess our focus on this right now is to let everybody know what we're doing and how it's going, and what we think to do to encourage people to come to this. So you want to?
Sure. Ready?
Okay.
Well, just one of the dates that I wanted, because we're kind of, we like to go back 5 years to our beginning and all. We began the prayer group on November 12th of 2019. So that's how long it's been going on. And when Rebecca had a question about discipleship as far as participation in a group. And so the question could be, who can participate? Well, of course, anybody can participate. But we also know that there are people who don't understand what we do, what's done, and so they might be hesitant. Things like, I can't pray out loud. Well, you talk to anybody that's in the group, and hopefully, I won't make you stand up, but hopefully that they will encourage others. But we have, as a group, grown to be able to, our prayers aren't eloquent. We are not all pastors, but God hears every one of our prayers, and we stumble through. I would say that I've gotten a lot braver at leading prayers. There are times when I run out of things to say, and I think I'm on a radio, and I say, that's all, and we go on. But so anybody can participate. If you come, you don't have to even share. You join in our prayers by your presence. The Holy Spirit is present, and He, you would feel uplifted. I would guarantee you that. One other thing that I've heard is that people don't feel that their prayers are good enough, that they would rather have someone else say their prayers because theirs isn't good enough. And that hurts me to feel that somebody feels that way, because God does hear every one of your prayers. He hears the prayers of children. He hears all of them. And the other thing is that some people might feel that we would be judging, like if we're sitting around in a circle and we're judging, oh, your prayer wasn't quite good enough. You didn't say all the these and thous quite right. And so to let that, dispel that little mystery that you might feel.
Okay. And what happens, and I know this can be a testimony from the others that attend our prayer meeting, is that it's so encouraging, it's so uplifting. When you walk out of there, it's like you've just got a breath of fresh air. At least that's the way I feel. We've never come out of that, and as we drive home, we've always said, well, that was a good group tonight. And we've never said anything else but that, and it's very true. And I want to kind of add on the reason some people, like Kathy was saying, they don't want to pray out loud. These are the things I've heard at times, and they're not. They don't think their words are right. I don't have anything to say about praying out loud, but there's no requirement on this group. You come. You don't have to pray. You can pray with us silently. Silent prayer is just the same as being aloud. It's just you're using your voice. At least that's my opinion on it. But there's okay.
They're trying to play us off like the Academy Awards. The music's going to start. So every week I put out a prayer note, and basically it's just a list of community prayers, national prayers, and prayers for people in our own church congregation. At this time, I have a list of about 50 people who receive this prayer note. It comes out usually Tuesday mid-morning to afternoon. And my hope is that if you can't attend, that you would use that as kind of a basis of your prayer life throughout that week, or even at 6 o'clock on Tuesday from wherever home you are. And we also use those prayers. Basically, I cut them up into little snippets and we pass them around. So if you didn't feel like you had a prayer that you wanted to be spiritually led to do, you could basically just read the prayer that's listed on there. It's very simple that way. So if you would want to receive this prayer note that comes out, it's, for me, one of the things is that it's not a gossip column. It's not a news report. These are prayers that we would want lifted up. So some of them are very personal, but it's not meant to share private things about different people. So just to feel comfortable about that. If you want to remain anonymous, we respect that as well. And so if you would want to be a part of that, receiving that Tuesday prayer note, please send me an email or send Jerry an email, send one of the pastors, and they'll get me your note or your email if that's how you would like.
And one other thing, we have an emergency prayer response team. That means it started out with 9 people, and it is 13 now. That's right. And what that is, if you feel that you have an immediate need, you have something happening in your life, you know somebody what's happening, and you need an immediate prayer, those people, you send the message to Kathy or myself or pastor, and we will send that out. And right then, these people have committed to stop what they're doing right at the time they get this and pray for this individual or whatever the situation is. And like I said, it's 13 now, and I think that's probably a good number.
It's a good number, but if you really have a passion to be on that emergency response team, that's great too. Just let me know. The other thing that I want to just reiterate is that we have had these prayer request cards in our existence forever. They're underutilized. I would hope that you would feel comfortable in, if you had a prayer concern, to fill one of these out. You could put it in the Miracle Barn. You could give it to either the pastors. You could give it to either Jerry or I, and then we would make sure that concern was sent out in that prayer note. We found that the more personalized, really, our experience, when we are praying for people in our community here, the prayer, we feel even more strongly attached than when it's important to pray for Ukraine and important to pray for other things, but we really do feel that when we're praying for our brothers and sisters, that that is such a blessing to us to be able to do that.
That's the true family aspect of Prairie Bible,
Yeah.
no doubt about it. Now, for those of you that maybe don't know Jerry and Kathy that well, this was an incredible testimony for them to stand up here and share what they just talked about. And the fact that they could stand up here in front of you very, very scary people and talk at all is a huge testimony. Would you help me thank them for coming up? Thank you. It is a truly great ministry that's been going on that they have really championed and doing awesome. They are too humble and too nervous to share with you their dream and their belief that God really's dream is that the prayer gathering starts to happen in here, because we don't have enough chairs anywhere else in the space, and that we need 50 and 60 people and 70 people praying on a Tuesday night together. And if that's a calling you have, it's not like you got to come once. You can come twice, come anytime. But just to have that experience is really awesome, and hopefully you all get a chance to do that at some point. I'm going to just highlight really quickly, and we will wrap up. This is the administrative and ministry team that's serving here in 2022 as your leadership team for Prairie Bible. I know you don't necessarily know all of them, maybe by name, by face, but just to know that those people are serving. If you have any questions or have questions about that, certainly come and find me, and I can get you in contact with any of them and all of them, but know that those are part of those people of the body that are helping in a certain way, and we want to make sure to recognize them and thank. Most of them are here today, and thank you for your time and your service that way. I'm going to open it up for any other questions before we close this up and wrap in prayer, but is there any other questions that anyone has or comments we want to make? Oh, boy. Randy wants the mic back. That could be dangerous. Thank you.
This is just a clarification and a supplemental comment to Tina's remarks. If you saw up there about the mission gifts, I believe we had the figure $1,500 for Jalingo, the orphanage. Is that right? Was it 1,500?
There you go. It's up there now.
I just got to thinking about this after Tina's remarks. I get to write the checks, and the fact is, in addition to what the ministry board identified for Jalingo Orphanage, we asked you, if members of the congregation, if you want to support this, you can. Obviously, that was volunteer. And I think it's really cool to know that our final check was $5,600 to Jalingo. And one of the reasons I mention that is, in case you are sitting here and you were one of the people that gave, it's like, I wonder what happened to my money. So it did join that $1,500. Now, one other note of really cool news is, since we sent that $5,600, we've had another $1,000 gift come in. So to me, that's just exemplary of what Prairie Bible Church is about. And I just wanted to thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify that.
Awesome, Randy. Any other comments or last-minute questions? I want to just offer again, we're doing this together as a team, as a family. It's not once a quarter you get to have this conversation. At any point in time, come up and find myself as a chair or anybody else on the leadership team and have these questions, discussions. So what we want to do is we're following God's lead as the full and complete body. I've asked Ryan Steffens, as a member of the admin team, to close us in prayer. Thanks, Ryan.
All right, if you'll bow your heads. God, I just want to quickly thank you for everything you've done for us, this great opportunity and blessing for us all to come together, just see what is happening in our church and in our community, and how this group is able to come together and be blessings to each other, be blessings to the community and to the world. I ask that you send us out this week getting to be simple and authentic representations of Christ to our world and to the world, and that you'll take care of us and bring us back. Amen.